Hi, Carl. Are you using when you do the pickup measure here? I'll
Yep.
share my screen actually to make this a little easier. Uh, let's see here. When you're doing the pickup measure, are you using this little? Can you see my screen first of all?
Yep. That's what I'm doing.
You're using this guy.
Yep.
Um, I'm trying to. I don't actually know off the top of my head if there is a better way. I know if you use the popover menu and go
Yep.
like, I think it's,
Yep.
and you type in the popover plus. Sometimes that works, but I don't actually know what the better workaround is for now because I've run into the same problem and that's what I've done. Um, if you go online to the Dorico forum, I'm sure someone has a better solution for you than I do.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Great. Do we have anyone else in the waiting room? Thanks for your question, Carl. And if not, we'll just dive in and get started. All right. Oh, and we have. Okay, great, everyone. Well, I'd like to formally welcome you to Dorico for Dummies and everyone else because it's a bit of a daunting task to learn a whole new input software. So we wanted to make sure that our membership felt supported, and as we move forward with these new technology in this ever-changing world of ours. If I haven't met you yet, my name is Yana Saylor, and I'm the director of the Canadian Music Centre Prairie Region, who is sponsoring and presenting this session for you today. I am joined by my colleague, Carlos Tinoco, who is our lead librarian and community liaison. So he will pop on and help me with the questions and comments that you can either raise your hand or leave in the chat. And it is hosted by our library assistant and resident engraver, Anton Lindenblatt. And
Hello.
we'll get started in just a moment, but we should acknowledge that we are coming to you from Treaty 7 territory, also known as Calgary or Mokinstis, and we are privileged to learn, grow, and share on these lands. And we commit to working together with our Indigenous neighbors and counterparts and look forward to growing and sharing together. Without further ado, it's wonderful to see some folks from last time joining us, some of our ACs, some of our community members. Welcome. Everyone is welcome. If you'd like to revisit this session, we will be posting it on the YouTube channel, so you can go back and reference this. It'll go by fast. Anton has a wealth of information for you, so I will get out of the way and let him take it away. So please enjoy Dorico for Dummies, and this is an interactive session, so if you have questions or comments, feel free to either raise your hand or pop a message in the chat. All right, enjoy.
All right. Yeah. Welcome back to Dorico for Dummies. I'm going to share my screen here. Everyone can see and hear this. I'm hoping.
Yes.
Fantastic.
You want to try
Okay.
your audio? Just to make sure. All
Can
good?
you hear that?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So, yeah, again, my name's Anton. I am the library assistant here. So if you didn't have a chance to attend last week's session but would still like to review, you can do so on our YouTube page. We've got the full session linked. And for those of you who are joining who may have some Dorico experience but just want to kind of learn some more of the advanced features, that's what today's session is for. I don't think it's going to go as long as last time. It's not going to be an hour and a half, I promise. But we're going to just kind of look at some of those more advanced features, some of the cool formatting things you can do, and as well as maybe some of like the playback features if we've got time. But my specialty is the engraving aspect, so I will mostly focus on that. As with last time, just a disclaimer, I am using Dorico Pro, which is the newest it's the, I guess, most complete version of Dorico. So all the features available at your fingertips. There are other versions of Dorico. There's SE Elements, which have some of the capacities, like they'll have the basic like no input, adding markings and stuff, but don't necessarily have some of the most advanced engraving and playback features. So if you are, following along at home and you're using other software, that's totally fine. All the resources that I send will still be applicable, just some of the features might not be accessible. So today I figured we would go through, I've got a horn quartet from our library, and I would kind of show you my process for how I would work through this, and then show you guys some of the cool tools. I'm just going to plug in my MIDI keyboard here. So for me, when I write, in the past, when I used Finale, MuseScore, Sibelius, I always did stuff by computer keyboard. However, with Dorico, this was finally kind of the push to get me to use a MIDI keyboard, because it is just so much faster than doing no input by a computer keyboard, but it is totally doable. I just figured I'd bring that up because there are some shortcuts that it's just faster to do on a MIDI keyboard. But anyway, so just a quick review. To input notes, you press Shift N, or you can click this little guy here. That will allow you to select your duration, and then to insert a pitch, you press any one of the note names. If you want to adjust, so for example, I press an A. If you want to adjust notes, so if you want to go up or down steps diatonically, on Mac you press Option and use your arrow keys. If you want to go up chromatically, you press Command Option. You go Option Control. Option Shift will take you up chromatically, and Option Command will do octaves. Articulations can be done on the side here, or there are also keyboard if you hover your mouse over, you can see the keyboard shortcut. So for an accent, we've got the forward-facing bracket. Staccato is left-facing bracket. Marcato is apostrophe. On Mac, tenuto is left slash. On PC, it is the number sign, Shift 3. And for all markings, so clefs, key signatures, meter, tempo, everything, you can use the popovers, which I've linked the full reference list for all those keyboard shortcuts in the chat, and we'll send them again via email. So you can either use the palette, this little button, and that will provide these pop-ups, or if you press the keyboard, that'll give you more options and give you the popover directly. So that's the basis of what we covered last time. Okay, so one of the cool things I love about Dorico that I couldn't do in other software is, first I'll mention, so as I discussed last time, there are 3 views: page view, gallery view, and fill view. I mostly work in page view and gallery view, but fill view is cool, because let's say, I've got my horn quartet here, but I need to make my page on the side here bigger so I can see what I'm doing. I can push that in, and it automatically adjusts the size of the staves. Very cool, very fun, very useful, especially when I am doing engraving work on Violet Archer. Anyway, so we're going to input some notes. So I'm going to press Shift N. Oh, make sure the window's selected. Shift N. And then if you want, so with Dorico, it works so that if you want to input multiple, like, for example, I've got 4 horns here. If you want to input, if you have condensing turned on, and Dorico automatically does, you'll want to be in gallery view to be able to input notes. And I'm going to talk about condensing in a little bit because that is its own thing. But you need to be in gallery or fill view for it to work. If you don't have condensing turned on, you don't have to worry about this. Anyway, so what I'm going to do, I press Shift N, and then I'm going to use the down arrow key, and that's going to allow me to input notes on all 4 staves at the same time. So that way, if I want to do a chord, so we've got B, G, E flat, and D, we can do that. And I realize I did not spell that correctly. I am not a pianist, so any pianists in the chat, don't judge me too harshly if I misspell some chords. So anyway, there's our first chord. To do triplets, just as a review, you select whatever your duration of, or the rhythmic duration of the triplet's going to be. So the basis is going to be 8th note triplets, even though we've got a chord note. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick your duration of the triplet. You're going to press semicolon. That's going to bring this little pop-up here. If you were doing just triplets, you don't need to do a ratio. If you were doing, say, like a sextuplet, you got to write the full ratio. Dorico just works that way. And actually, if you do the full ratio, it will actually show up on the little sidebar here. And then if you do press Control click, it'll allow you to modify that. But anyway, so I'm going to go semicolon, and these guys pop up. To make that there is a chord note. You can just import or insert the chord note as is. So we've got C, A, C, A, G, E flat, and D, B flat, A, F. Very cool. Now, I realize I haven't changed the key signature or added tempo. We can do that first. So we're going to go Shift T. For tempo, I can just add moderately. Q equals chord. So Q is chord note. E is 8th note. H is half note. And if you want to add a dot, you can do so. So we'll go chord note equals 86. Boom, beautiful, wonderful. And again, to add dynamics, you can just select all these, press Shift D, add your forte. Now you might be wondering why I'm doing this in gallery view. I did mention it's because condensing, and I am going to give you a bigger demonstration than that earlier, because what happens, so if you want to add a new tab, you can go Command T, and that'll add a score from the side. It'll allow you to view any, so if I wanted to look at the horn 1 part, I can do that. Oops. Or if, I can add any side. Now, when I select a layout for like the full score, it's going to automatically show me page view. So as you can see here, all our horn parts have been condensed into one stave. Actually, if you go Control and right click the tab here, you can do a vertical or horizontal split. So here you can see in gallery view all the parts spread out individually and condensed here. And then if you want to switch between views, on Mac you go Command Option. So Command Option 1 is page view. Command Option 2 is gallery view. Command Option 3 is fill view. Anyway, to add ties. And I am aware of some of this. A lot of this is kind of what we covered last time. But this is also kind of just how I do note entry anyways. So we'll add our next note. And then for these guys, since they are all playing the same rhythm, I'll just add those super quickly. Beautiful. And then to tie, we would go, you select all your notes, or select at least two of the notes being tied. You don't have to do the final one. And press T twice, and that will add your ties. I'm just gonna add this guy really quickly here. Now, Dorico does automatically, because Dorico likes to do things the most conventional way, or however you have your settings. If I press the note, it's automatically going to turn it into a half note, regardless of if I tie it or not. If I want that specific duration, I can press O, which gives me this little guy down here, the force duration tool, and then I can press T. And tie it. All right, so, and then we're gonna just tie these guys. Oops. Make sure all those are selected. Boom, beautiful, wonderful. Everything's going great. So let's go back to our page view, and I will talk condensing as well as adding some of this other stuff. So to review from last time, before I talk about condensing real quick, if you press either Control I or Command I on PC, and I'd just like to use a disclaimer, while I do use both PC and Mac, I'm mostly using Mac, or my brain defaults to Mac shortcuts when using Dorico. So sometimes my PC shortcut knowledge might not be the best. For all my beautiful PC users, you can consult the reference card. They will have shortcuts for both Mac OS and Windows, Linux, whatever software you're using. Anyway, so Command I on Mac will open up the project info menu. So here I can add my title, and I can add my composer, and things like copyright and all that wonderful stuff. You notice here they have flows. Flows are Dorico's versions of movements. When you start a new project, you're going to have a flow regardless. You can add more flows to create more movements, or just have separate, if you want to, if you're sketching and you just want to have separate like flows while you kind of flesh out all your ideas. I do that all the time when I'm composing. Yeah. So that's that. You can add that. Beautiful. Before I go on, any burning questions that need to be answered or addressed? I'm hearing that beautiful silence as a no. All right, so let's talk condensing and engraving. I'm gonna first start with the layout menu, because that's where a lot of the condensing, both the layout menu and the condensing menus are where you're gonna do a lot of that work, as well as engrave mode. So, first of all, layout options is Command-Shift-L on Mac. You can also use this beautiful thing known as the jump bar, and if you just want layout options, so you can go directly to all your condensing options. Oh, and you can turn it on and off. Actually, yeah, that is. And so I just press J, and I can turn off condensing by doing that, or I can turn it back on. It's completely up to you. But let's talk. So condensing is one of my favorite features of Dorico because it allows you to take, I'm actually going to just turn that off. It allows you to take all these staves of music and put it in one folder, or in one stave, and you can customize how that looks. So, layout, and when you're going through Dorico, a lot of these, I encourage you to kind of explore and play around with it in your own time, but I will mostly focus on, for today, I'm mostly going to focus on players, staves and systems, and some of the vertical spacing stuff. But all these have really cool features. Let's start with, players. So this allows you to choose whether you want to enable condensing, how you want the condensing to be done. So section players, just as a review, section players are instruments where it's going to be multiple in a section. So say your first and second violins, you can select, by default, Dorico will not condense them because they are two separate sections, but you can have them condensed. You can condense the divisi. And I actually will talk a bit about divisi today because that is another really cool feature of Dorico. And you can allow, say, if you want to change this to a trumpet mid staff, you can allow those instrument changes to happen. If you have, so Dorico will automatically condense via all players carrying the same instrument. So here I have 4 horns. They will automatically condense. If I wanted to add, so I'm going to go back to setup mode if you want to add an instrument. If I, for example, wanted my 4th horn to, for whatever reason, switch to euphonium, because they do that. And also, default Dorico automatically puts euphonium in the B-flat treble clef. Any band composers in the room know that that's a sin because we are not in Britain. Anyway, so this allows you to either, if I had more instruments, you could select to exclude them from condensing the entire time. Say you have 3 clarinets and you always want them to be separate staves, you can do that. Or let's say I want my 4th horn in euphonium to be condensed. I can press custom condensing groups. And if I go back into if I go back and enable condensing, it's going to put that with, it's going to put those two together. So for example, if you are writing an orchestral score and you want your bass trombone or 3rd trombone and your tuba to be together, they will do that. Just note that you can't, at least right now of Dorico, have this say 4 and link that with that same horn style that 1, 2, 3 are doing. I would love to know how to do that. I don't right now, but that's just something to be aware of. But this is where you can choose, And now, if you see, if I want my horns 1 and 4 to be condensed, but I don't want these guys, I now have that option. So this is also really useful. So say you do things in the older orchestral style, and you have your horns, your high horns and your low horns. You can now condense them as such. But that's if you want specifically to that. Oops. Okay. Anyway. So how condensing works, basically, is Dorico will take whatever kind of... it takes all the music you've entered, all the information, and it will put it together. Some things to note about condensing is things like slurs, articulations, even dynamics. depending on like how they are shared with other players, will affect how it's condensed by default. I will show you, like I said, so the layout tools does give you some flexibility if you want things to specifically be condensed a certain way. When we go into engraving mode, there's also more options. So if you need things manually condensed a certain way, that is also an option. But for example, I probably shouldn't delete my music. If we go down to this stave right here, so we've got quarter note triplets. Again, I'm gonna press, my shortcut is 5 for quarter note. Dorico's default 6. You can change that. And to do so, you go Command or Control, comma, and you go down to no input. Oh, you go down to key commands, and you can, from here, either search up the function you want, and change it from there. But anyway, so we're gonna go, we want quarter note triplets. So I'm pressing my quarter note, and we're gonna go, or I've selected my quarter note, semicolon. Gonna change that to a half note. So I'm going from bar 7, which is right after the fermata on the second line here. So I'm just gonna add my first horn part. Add another, oops. Now, when you are adding triplets, if you are not changing the duration, you can just, oh, it doesn't work for this one. Yeah, often, especially when you're doing quarter note or eighth note triplets, you can just keep on adding and you don't have to do anything. Okay, anyway, let's add our rhythm. And if at any time I am going too fast and you need me to slow down, because I am a fast talker by default, you can put that in the chat, get one of my colleagues to say it, or even just be like, hey, Anton, could you please slow down? That is okay too. Anyway. C's. And we don't need a triplet there. So, there's our first horn line. We're gonna add our slurs because articulations matter. Let's add our second. And actually, I'm just gonna add a key signature so we have less accidentals. To do a key signature, it's just Shift K. We are in, this is in transposed pitch. You can go down to the bottom and change it to concert pitch if you'd like. But this is concert E flat major. So we'll do that, changes that, beautiful. And let's add our third horn. And just as a note, the carets allow you to move by duration. You've selected in this little menu down here, but you can also click. And that will allow you to do that. All right, let's add our third horn. Sorry, I'm using the computer keyboard, which is why it's kind of jumpy all over the map. Sometimes I do switch between the two, just inadvertently. Okay, great. Now, if we switch condensing on again. Oh, I turned it off. That's probably why. You can see it's put these all together. Now, Dorico likes to work. Actually, I'm going to split the tab again so you guys can kind of see what's happening from both ends here. Here we go. So yeah, Dorico will group based on slur, or articulation, rhythm, articulation, rhythm. It will try and find the best option between to create the most straightforward, easiest to read. But sometimes that can mean your condensing can be a little annoying. You might have to play around with it. So example, I want my first and fourth horn to both play a chord note. Oops, that's chord note A. Now, because they've already kind of been split into two categories, it's just going to do that. But if I were to say, if these guys all play a unison note, and actually, if you can see when I'm pressing on the caret and it's shifting things around a bit, Dorico will, it will find the best option. Sometimes, though, this might mean, as you can see here, horns 1, 2, 3 are all condensed together, and horn 4 is left all on its own. I will show you how to manually change that in a sec. But if you just leave Dorico do the condensing, it's just going to find the best way that works for it. And I don't have any condensing groups on. Cool. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. There are a million ways to do that. So that's kind of the bare basics if you want condensing a certain way. And this is all other engraving stuff. But you can set these condensing options from any mode. You can do it from write mode. You can do it from engrave mode. This layout menu, these menus all work in any mode up here that you are in. So for, the specific, I want these instruments to condense this way. Those options, you go to layout mode. For how you want certain, like say your unisons to look, or if they're going to use rests or not, that's when we're going to go back to our engraving options, which is Shift Command E on a Mac. You're going to go down to the condensing button, and this will give you parameters for your player labels. So 1, 2 versus the adue, how you want those to look. Now, these are my settings. These aren't necessarily the default factory settings, but let's say here I want all my horns to be playing this low A. You can play around with those things. So that's for specifically how you want kind of the labeling to look. The one other menu is our notation menu. So you go Command Shift N, this, and you go down to condensing. This gives you the options for how you want the condensed Dorico to do the condensing. So if you want, like, So you want them all playing that same note. And there. So they're all unison. If you want, so if you want your single stemmed unison, you can select that, or if you want always the up down arrows, which some publishing houses, like that's what Violet Archer did. So often when I'm engraving her works, this is the format I have it on. If you want to allow unisons to happen mid-phrase, or you don't. If you want pitch crossing, so for example, if you want my second horn to, if you've got too many pitch crossings, Doric will be like, no, you got to put that on a separate line. If you want accidental visibility overrides trills, omligation for things like, so if you have a shared chord and you want them to all have the same stem direction, or if you don't. And this applies for slurs and playing techniques as well. And actually, slurs are the other thing that will determine, condensing. So if you've got an instrument doing they might be playing the same rhythms, but the slurs are different. Dorico, sometimes, depending on the context, will be like, nope, those have to be separate. But you can, again, decide how to do that. And same thing goes for playing techniques. If you prefer to have the little player labels and just that, you can do that. Or if you would prefer rests, that is also an option. And then whether you want rests to appear or not when a player's hiding. For if you've got one player doing something but another player not, you can choose how that's formatted. So for example, here I always have it paired with the active player, but you can always include it in the staff label or just simply don't condense it. And so that's that for condensing. And then this is cool for all the other options. Again, like I talked about last time, if you want beaming, or if you're trying to figure out your beaming, how you want your rests to look. Things like percussion and beam grouping. Again, I covered all that last time. You can go back and look at the next session if you'd like to look at more. But yeah, so that's the basis of doing condensing if you're just working in write mode. Let's say I've fleshed out this entire thing. I'm not going to do that right now. I've already been yapping for a while. But so let's say we've done all our formatting, we've done all our stuff. Actually, before I do that, any more questions? Everything's good so far? And again, I'll drop my email in the chat if you have any questions, or honestly just want to chat more about Dorico. I'll be happy to do so. And you can reach me at my CMC email. Anyway.
Sorry, if I could just jump in, and we'll make Anton available for half-an-hour sessions for all CMC associate composers, so you'll be able to sign up for that. And for community members, just get in touch and we'll make some arrangements for you as well.
I'm always happy to provide office hours. Notation is my passion. Anyway, let's go to engrave mode. And I will close this window because engrave mode will automatically condense. So this is what you do theoretically when you've done all your note input and you've added all your stuff and you're like, okay, I'm ready to make the layout work. And I know, especially if you're coming from other programs like Finale or MuseScore, and I'm sure Sibelius as well, often, and I do this as a composer, I like to work on my layout as I compose. The thing with the Dorico workflow, you totally can do that. It is just faster to do the input first, come back and do that later. But sometimes, honestly, I'll still switch between layout and stuff, depending on what needs to be done. But for all intents and purposes, yeah, this is what you do after. So, some tools on the side. We've got graphic editing. So this allows you to select notes and then select objects, move things around, add breaks, add page turns, change your bracketing. This allows you to do all that. Over here, that button just hides menus. This is your frame. So especially if you want to add text that isn't actually linked to an instrument or anything, you can do so here. You can add actually music frames. I haven't played around with too much, but it allows you to, if you press this button, this is the graphic slice tool, and you select something, it will make a slice, which you can then put in a music frame. Oops. And if you double click, it will switch back to that mode. It allows you to add slices or things you've added in your clipboard, like you've copy and pasted an image, whatever. This tool's fun because this allows you to do vertical your manual spacing adjustments, which often you have to fine tune stuff when you're engraving, proofreading. So that's for vertical alignment. And this, and this allows you to do, if you use your arrow keys, this allows you to change the physical spacing between notes. And then, yeah, there's your graphic editor. And then, graphics frame. Yeah. And then this, if you've got images in your desktop, let's say I want to add this random background I found, you can do that with this little tab. Very cool, very fun. And this is great for if you've got graphic notation, so you've got alternate fingerings you want to show in a contemporary flute piece. You can take a picture of that. You can import it into Dorico and add that. So that's that. I'll talk about this little panel here. So, so to change between, if you want to add, let's say I want to move this down to the next bar, I can press move to next system. I can also add a system break. Yeah, if I want to just move this between systems, I can do that. If I want to add a system break in a very specific place, you press that button. Or if I want, say, these two measure, this system measures to be a system, I press that button. Frame breaks are your page breaks. So I want to move this to a new page. You can do that. Lock frame allows you to, your frames are your pages. If I want to lock this into a frame, or lock frame allows you, so whatever you've got in place, I'll keep that. Lock layout and reset layout means whatever your layout is, you can either lock that in place or reset that. Coordination lines are for if you're doing cutaways, and you can actually do cutaways in write mode. You don't have to do them in engraving mode. If you go, so if on Mac, if you press Control, right click, you scroll down to staff, this allows you to do, and this is a very new feature in Dorico, and I love it. You can cut away staffs, cut away staves. You can start, and if you want specific instruments to cut away, that's what the manual tool is for. I know I didn't talk about this too much last time, this feature, but in write mode, this kind of allows you to change manual beaming, add chord symbols, change your staff size. If you want, say, an OCS stave, above or below, and divisi. And actually, I'll come back to divisi in a bit. So yeah, and then coordination lines are for cutaways. So sorry, if you want to create a cutaway, and then let's say, and actually you can also do cutaways by going to your layout options, staves and systems, cutaways. I can automatically do that, and then coordination lines link between cutaway staves. Again, stuff you can, I highly recommend experimenting within your own time because there's so many features and ways you can do that. It's really cool for creating score reductions, but that is its own separate video. If you want to change the bracketing, you can do that down here. And so that's all these options. On the side here are your page layouts. And these are very useful. For example, if you are creating a show for someone, like let's say musical theater or whatever, and you want your parts and scores to always have the same layout when you start a new flow or whatever. So these allow you to, say, change how your page numbers start, or insert flow heading change, which is like your movement titles. You can insert pages, What I really like is the page template because you can edit these guys to look exactly how you want. So default is going to be any page that isn't your first page. So let's say I want to bold this guy, actually bold in italic. These guys are called project tokens, by the way. It's any information you add to here or is a project token. Dorico, you can find on their website, they'll have a full list of them. But this is data in your project that, it's data in your project that will show up in your layout, and you can manipulate that however you like. So yeah, and if I want my layout, let's say I have a different layout on my left page, and I want to copy that over to my right, or vice versa, that's what you can do. So this will be the default second page in the score. And as you can see now here, the layout will always be italicized. And first has its own thing, and you don't have, for both parts and full score, they have their own. So if, again, I want to make this italicized or change the font, you can do that, and it will automatically do the same for both. This gives you a lot of flexibility, so that way you're not having to make new templates every time you start. And same thing for flow headings. So for example, we'll apply those changes. We'll close that. Oops.
We have
Flow
a
headings.
quick question about. Oh, pardon me. Sorry, Carlos, we're both on the same page. So we have a question about cutaways from Rosemary.
Yes.
So in a cutaway score, can you have different instruments playing in different meters tempi?
I'm actually not sure about that one.
That might be something we just do some experimenting with and circle back.
Yes.
Rosemary on?
Yes. The Dorico forum and the Dorico handbook will tell you. Cutaways aren't something I've done a lot of experimentation with. I want to say yes right off the bat, but I'm actually not sure. But there is information out there. The Dorico forum, you could literally ask, can you do like different tempis and mixed meter in cutaways Dorico? And someone will have an answer for you. Like you could Google it or look, because there will be the forum. I guarantee you someone has asked that question. Unfortunately, I don't know that knowledge off the top of my head, but there are answers for that. And I am actually curious because that would be cool to try. Does that answer your question? Hopefully? Maybe? I wish I could be more of a wealth of knowledge, but unfortunately...
Maybe that's an office hours topic.
Exactly.
We can do some experiments and then circle back in office hours. And we'll, when we send out the follow-up email, we'll include some office hours so you can sign up for those.
Exactly. So, flow headings. So yeah, these are your, actually I'll add some. By default, I don't, but if you go to page setup, you can go show flow headings, and you can select how you want that to look. There's nothing here right now, but if I go here, and I go, also, because my default, I don't have flow headings, if I want to do that, I just have to press remove all page overrides or insert flow heading change. And that will do that. So as you can see, we've now got our heading. And if I want to say, make that a Roman numeral, if instead of a number, I can go, flow number, upper or Roman, depending on if you want upper or lowercase. I press apply. Oh, that did not work. Usually I know the shortcut for this, but my brain's not working today. And actually, if you press, so if you are in the any of the editors, you can press this. You can press Control, right click. It will give you all that info right here, so you don't have to actually remember off the top of your head. Normally I know this one, but it's not working. The handbook will tell you what that is. Sorry, sometimes I have brain farts. But anyway, so that allows you to change your flow headings. You can add your own custom page templates down here too. If you have several different part layouts you want to use. This is a very powerful tool though, especially if you are doing things in a certain style. And if you want to save any of these as a template to use for further use, you can go File, Save as Project Template. The categories are the ones that are listed when you start a new template, and it gives you all those options on the side to pick. I'll just pop this up right now. Actually, no, that's not the one. That's the one that will show up when you use the hub, or if you go new from project template, it's these guys. But you can also create your own category. And you just have to make a name for it. If you want like the info you've done on the side here to show up, you can either like, if you want the music that you've already used to show up, or like the movements, you can select this button. Preserve project info will save like this info. So what your title is, the composer, copyright, dates like that. And then, yeah, if you want to add a new one, you can go from the options on the side here. Okay. So yeah, that's layout mode. Going back to condensing. Now, one thing to note, when you press, you can't, if there's condensing enabled, you cannot press notes that are being, or staves that are being condensed. You can't, because Dorico's like, they're two things at once. You can't, so you can't edit from there. But if you go back to engrave mode, and then my default shortcut for this is Option C, but you can go to engrave, condensing change, and this will allow you to make your manual adjustments. So for example, I don't remember which measure I selected. If you absolutely must have for this section your fourth and third horn to be separate, you can do that. And this will allow you to change all those notation options. Down here's the manual condensing one. So let's say I need these guys to be separate. I check mark that. I turn on that condensing approach, and I can change. So I can say, put these in a separate stave. I can actually flip it too. So let's say I want my condensing to turn into that. Let me see here. Yeah, if I want those guys to be in separate staves, oops, that's not the button. You can press, you can do, you can do that. Just keep in mind, if you do any manual condensing, if you've got multiple staves being condensed, they all need to line up. And I'm just gonna, and see, now I've done the condensing change. 1, 2 is separate, 3 and 4 is together, or vice versa. If, let's say all these are not condensed, but you absolutely must condense them, or actually, if you want to change it so it's 1, 3, you have it set for 1, 2, 3, 4, but then halfway through the score, you must have it changed to high and low. You can also do that. I don't know why it's not showing it, but it will. Oh, because it's, yeah, I see. If we go back here, it puts 2, 4 together, 1, 3 together. Yeah. You can, a lot of the condensing changes I make, layout changes, I do through that, especially when I'm cleaning up a score. Dorico, anytime it sees a rest, it will automatically kind of calculate what the condensing is. So you might see a lot of like adues or like 1, 2 together, 3, 4. You can also, if you open up the bottom menu, which is Command 8, you can change how you want that to look. You can hide the player labels, or if you want to change how those look, you can do that too. Condensing is a very powerful tool, but it might take some getting used to. So that is that. Let me finish this. We're going to talk, I have to actually, I'm going to delete these guys. I want to talk to Visi real quick because that is its own very powerful tool, but it is its own thing. So for Divisi, again, like I mentioned last session, the difference between a single player and a section, single players can't be Divisi, section players can. Any instrument can be a section. So if you want a section of bass flutes, I don't know why you'd want a section of bass flutes unless you're writing for like a huge flute choir, but I'm not here to judge you for I'm not here to judge you for however you write. Actually, if someone writes for a choir of bass flutes, let me know. I would love to hear that. Anyway, so to do any sort of divisi, you're gonna go down to staff, and you can either create a divisi, change your divisi, or restore it back to Unison. So for divisi, you can do this however you want. Let's say I want to add a solo bass flute and then the section. I can press this button and it will do that. And it will automatically give you the Italian names, but you can also change that. So let's say I'm not using Italian. I just want, say, section. It will give you your solo and your section. And actually, and then you can click that little signpost, and that will, and if you don't want, once you've split that, you don't want to show this name, you can hide that. If you have section numbers, you can also hide that. And it says, oops, follow options. All those options are available in the engrave layout mode. So this one. So there is divisi, and you can, if you want to say, so it's just the section, but you want to split that in two parts. I'm actually just going to delete this guy, and we'll just start that again for easier. Yes. If you want this to split into multiple sections, you can do that. And then, you know, if you want these guys to have their own names, you can either do that. And you can also hide these labels in engrave mode if you just don't want to see those. Or actually you can, sorry, you can also, you can hide that, play around. And if you want to make this a very specific group, but not Bob, because I can delete that group. Let's say you want Jim and Mary to have their own group and then Bob on the side. You can do that, and you can add in engrave mode, you can add the option for secondary brackets and such. But that is Divisi. That's kind of most of the tools I use. There are other stuff too. Just on the side here, if you want to, for example, change, I don't have music. If I were to put music, you can also change your note heads, how you want, if you've got piano, if you want to change your pedaling style, again, staff size, things like that. This is all tools you can explore at your own leisure. But most of what I'm doing when I'm working, most of what you honestly have to worry about is write in engrave mode. I'll briefly cover play. This is for, especially if you want to add things, if you want to add different VSTs, different sounds, change your mixer. This is what all this is for. I use Note Performer, but if you're not using Note Performer, you're using the default sound settings, you can still change all these. You can add velocity, CC dynamics. You can add all these cool expression maps. Expression maps is basically all the playback stuff. If you want to add reverb and fun effects, you can do that as well. If you want to master your audio a bit, that's all available. This isn't my specialty. I'm not one to do a lot of audio mixing, mastering. But for all those out there, especially those who love working in DAWs, there's stuff for you. There's also, in the play section, you can add things like playback templates. So set to Note Performer or other options if you've got them. Let's see. I'll very briefly cover stage templates. Stage allows you to, this is all Dorico defaults. This will kind of change how your, like the size audio, it modifies the sound. So like, say you're writing for concert band, this will have the best sound for concert band. This will kind of have the best, I guess, audio setup. So like, if you're writing for chamber strings or piano trio, it will kind of put the sounds, like piano trio, for example, it'll put the cello on this side and the piano back here and the violin on this side, and you can import your own. Space templates allow you to change at where you would be recording for, or what the I guess the overall ambiance would be. So how big your supposed space is. Of course, you can do things like automation, as if you're in a DAW, record, decide where you want to play back. If you click any of on the ruler up here, this allows you to do that. Very straightforward. This is a whole thing on itself. I'm not going to worry about that. And then finally is print mode. If you're printing, you select printer, but if you want to do graphics, this is where you would, so if you want to export this to a PDF, this is your option. You can also export to image files, which is what I do when I'm working on score vids. And if you do that, this allows you to change your resolution, how you want your print layout to look. If you want like a watermark or any annotations, you can do all that here. And then of course, this is where you would select page size and all that. Yeah, there is so much to explore with Dorico. You can even, if you're working on multiple devices and you want your user settings to be the same, you can import, export them. You can, there's so much you can do. Library is for all like your fonts, all the menus I've talked about here. Things like how you want, say, your fonts to look, or any of your text layout. I think that more or less covers everything. There is so much more Dorico than I can explain in 2-hour sessions, but that's also why we have office hours for your very specific questions, problems, concerns, queries, and all that good stuff. Any questions, concerns, comments, anything? The floor is open to you guys. We'll also be sticking around for a while afterwards if you just want to chat and, yeah, ask more questions. Whatever the people desire.
Yeah, as we mentioned, we'll set up some office hours, so just look out for that email coming to your inbox in, well, probably on Monday actually, so next week, and we'll have the replay available there as well. And you can sign up for, as mentioned, a one-on-one session with Anton if you are a CMC associate composer, but we'll also have office hours that are available for anyone to access Anton and his expertise. And then you'll also, if you're a community member and want to work with Anton individually, he can discuss that with you and figure that out, get you sorted. Lots to learn, and lots of material to go through very quickly. Oh, Diane.